Now, whatever happened to our hot, dry summer? Did the climate catastrophists get carried away when they warned us about a summer of heat waves and extra dry months? Well, you be the judge. Here's what the Bureau told us.
Welcome to the Bureau's long-range forecast for October to December 2023. Dry and warm conditions are expected for nearly all areas in the coming months. The long-range forecast shows most of Australia is likely to have below average rainfall over the coming months. There is an increased chance of unusually dry conditions for the rest of this year.
Yeah, the Weather Bureau issued numerous official warnings from September onwards, declaring an El Nino was occurring and predicting a hotter and drier summer than usual across most of the country and specifically across the southeastern states. The media, of course, ramped up the concerns.
For the first time in 8 years, the Bureau of Meteorology declaring the world's most consequential climate driver is here.
So consistently what we are probably projecting for the summer is that Australia will continue to see warm and dry weather, and it's really up to individuals and communities now to prepare for a summer of heat and fire hazard.
Well, it's very likely to be drier than normal right through southern Australia. Now, the very darkest shadings show where it's a more than 80% chance of below medium rain. Also, a strong dry signal for much of the east coast, Queensland and some parts of the northern tropics. That's the rainfall. Temperature-wise, for the rest of the year, there's a greater than 80% chance for almost the whole of Australia that temperatures will be above average over the next 3 months. So, Roz, there it is. We've got a double dry signal. It means hot, dry weather for at least the next few months.
Don't you love those big, bright, red, scary maps, hey? But you all know what happened. I focused on how wrong this was here on Sky back in December because some places had more than their average summer rainfall in just the first week or so of December. But of course, the rain has kept coming. Here's a clip through my car windscreen driving back to Sydney from Adelaide just after Christmas. This was near Jerilderie, I reckon, just torrential rain. The downpours have happened all over the place, of course. They've been welcome in many areas, but doing damage in others.
The torrential downpour hit before 6 a.m. It was relentless.
In central Victoria, water as far as the eye can see. Paddocks now floodplains. Entire communities cut off.
Like a scene out of Survivor, these campers stranded in the Gold Coast hinterland.
Oh my God. I don't even know if we're going to be able to get out.
Surrounded by fast-moving floodwater.
Homes were left cut off by a slow-moving trough that dumped heavy rain. From the 9 News helicopter, the scale of the crisis is painfully clear. The town in Moreton Bay region resembles a series of small islands, backyards turned into lakes and moats surrounding homes.
All that water, hey? And when you check the Weather Bureau's monthly reports for December, they tell the story. In Victoria, the Bureau says rainfall was more than 65% above average for the month. Many sites had their highest December daily rainfall on record, and many had their highest December monthly totals on record. In New South Wales, rainfall was above average, but only by 4% statewide. But again, many sites had their highest December daily and monthly rainfall totals on record. And in South Australia, rainfall across the state was 93% above average for December, with numerous sites having their highest daily highest daily rainfall for a December day, and many too having their highest totals for that month on record. For all this, the Bureau claims that nationally December was hotter and drier than the long-term average. You always have to remember they've revised downwards many earlier temperature records. And besides, all those figures were only for December. And as you know, the rainfall has continued through large parts of the country during January. The Bureau has got it hopelessly wrong for this summer. Why? Let's check in with climate science blogger Joanne Nova, who joins us from Perth. Good to talk to you again, Jo. Did you foresee
Always
this?
good to talk to you, Chris.
Did you foresee this
Chris,
when we talked about El Nino and all of that from September? Did you buy that, or did it always look dubious?
Chris, we've been writing for years about how bad the BOM is at its seasonal forecasts. And to me, the big question here is, and everyone forgives the BOM for short-range forecasts where a cyclone tracks slightly north or slightly south or those kind of things and that sort of extreme. But what we're looking at is this level of religious forecasting instead of scientific forecasting. And that's a terrible accusation to make about the Bureau of Meteorology. But when we look at their seasonal forecasts, they have been wrong year after year after year. And they simply are no better than random luck at things like, will it be a barbecue summer? Will it be hot and dry? Things like this are determined by the El Nino to some extent and largely. And we can't predict the El Nino more than a few years in advance. So yet we sit here with a huge $1.5 trillion bet based on the BOM's reputation that we can predict the weather 50 years from now, and we can't even do it a season in advance. I mean, imagine if the BOM was able to predict seasonal forecasts, how different it would look when they said to the farmers, well, this year we're going to get more frost than usual, or this year the frost will be later, or we'll get more rain in December and January, and you could actually rely on those kind of forecasts. I mean, that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars to our nation's farmers.
We've spoken to farmers on this program.
We don't have anything like that.
Yeah, we've spoken to farmers on this program. They've given up on the BOM, so they're going to private forecasters because they want reliable information. So is it this climate religion that causes the mistakes from the BOM? Because they, instead of talking about just El Nino and seasonal patterns, they always chuck in terms like climate drivers and they ramp it up, and now we don't just have heat waves, we have severe extreme heat waves and whatever. Do you think they're really trying to ramp up the alarmism rather than just sticking to the facts?
Well, I mean, for starters, and to define it as a religion as opposed to being a science, in science the data is the only thing that matters. You're either right or you're wrong on your prediction, and if you get it wrong, you throw it out, you start again. It's what any good scientist does. Instead of that, their climate models are written with the idea underneath them that CO2 is a major driver, instead of just some minor player, one part of many. And they also have this religious objection to the sun controlling the climate. And it's amazing. They sort of treat the sun as if it's a light globe, and it's just they count the amount of kilojoules of energy coming out of the sun, which are almost constant, and they have a very good grip on that. But the sun is an enormous ball of magnetism and electrodynamic kind of changes. We get a solar wind, which literally forces particles at us at 1 million miles a second. And they come at us from south, they come from north, they flip directions within minutes. They are full of charged particles, or sometimes less so, sometimes it's fast. This is called space weather. And there's so much to space weather, more than just a solar wind. And the BOM counts this as worth zero, absolutely nothing. They say the solar wind can't affect our climate. They don't, in their models, it's all worth a big zero. And yet these private forecasters that you mentioned, the long-term forecasters, people like Piers Corbyn in the UK, or Inigo Jones, I think it's Matthew Walker in Australia, they're predicting 1 or 2 months in advance and using solar forecasts. So they're looking at solar magnetic effects, solar UV, solar IR, that's infrared, ultraviolet light. You know, the sun changes colour. And it changes colour on a kind of 11-year cycle. And who knew? It's not colours we can see, because our eyes can't pick up infrared, which is the sort of deep red, and the ultraviolet. We can't see that. But if we could see that, we would see the sun slightly change colour through this 11-year cycle. It's just extraordinary what's going on in the sun. And yet for the BOM, big nothing. And that's why they can't predict the weather long-term in advance.
Well, they should give it away. When they have a record like they have this summer, they should give it away. Stick to trying to get tomorrow's weather forecast right, rather than give people completely misleading reads on the coming months. I'll speak to you again, Joe.
This is the... Look, it's great to talk to you, and we can talk for hours about this kind of stuff. But in the long-range forecasting, we, talk to the guys like Hayden Walker or Piers Corbyn, and they are getting their predictions about 85% right. The UK Met Office decided they wouldn't accept bets against Piers Corbyn. This is 20 years ago.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll follow up on that, Joe.
It was too good.
We are out of time. I've got to move on. Great to talk to you. We'll catch up again.